It's good for players and parents and coaches on this because one, it'll because you always wonder, how did that person get to that spot? Mm-hmm. How do you become the dude?
You don't ever look there. It's not easy.
It's not. No one's promoting that.
The boring answer to that nobody wants to hear, and whenever I say it to every single player or coach or whoever, they all look at me like, okay, well, thanks for the shove-off answer. But it's not. You just do.
Let's finish it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. We're coming off the Lawler episode, and I still think that was just a phenomenal conversation, and it's the first time that I've developed an episode and like the segments of it, and I didn't even use any of the segments that...
Might as well have thrown it right into the trash.
I mean, and again, that's when you have a good guest like that, it makes the conversation more unique. And whenever we create these podcasts, we want it to be very organic conversation. We have talking points, we have segments that we look at and make sure that there's some type of clear path, because we don't want it to be where we're talking about random nonsense. But whenever I have a conversation with Lawler, it's always, there is a sequence of events, and we always go back and forth on the combo. So it was awesome.
He was a good dude, man. That was my first time meeting Todd, and good gosh, he's a smart, intellectual individual, and that guy, he was entertaining. I did not speak that much in that podcast, but I was enjoying being a fly on the wall.
There was a lot of problem areas that we addressed in baseball space. And again, baseball's in a really good area right now, but I'm hoping I can look back at that podcast and say, yeah, we saw everything that was going to happen moving forward, because Silicon Valley is not going to create the technology for sports. It's just, it's the market cap's not there. It's not a profit area for them, but these idea guys like Lawler in the Midwest who live and breathe youth sports every single day, they can see the problems. The East and the West Coast, God love you guys. I love visiting LA and New York City, but at the same time, you're not experiencing, it's not the central hub of amateur sports. Now you're probably going to come back at me like, oh, you're all wrong. We have the best youth sports. And I'm open to that debate, but it seems like example, Lawler and his group are originally from Iowa.
Yep.
Who would have thought that one of the most influential products in youth sports came from Iowa, and Team Snap came from Colorado. So I feel like there's a lot of segue there, a lot of I wouldn't say segue, a lot of wiggle room for some parent out there that's having an issue, and they're going to end up solving that issue for youth sports.
It's just solving problems, and honestly, the whole time when he was talking, it was just more so about him trying to create an overall better experience. That was what he kept going back to. It's like parents, players, coaches, directors, tournament directors, everybody. It should just be a better experience, and through technology and through different innovative ways, we can help create that.
Yep. And his idea on live streaming with games, and people are going to be like, oh,
we didn't even get down that.
Yeah, like, people are going to be like, oh, we already have that. Like, no. The ideas that he has on that is phenomenal. I can like when he talks about it, it just seems like, yeah, that's like a foregone conclusion. It should definitely go that route. But again,
who's to say in 5 years it's not?
You got to have
Maybe
somebody.
Sooner.
You got to have somebody that's going to be a catalyst and push that envelope forward.
Mm-hmm.
So today's episode is, we're not going to go tech route, startup culture, anything like that. I got a really good question from one of our players, and it ties into what Dave wanted to talk about as well. And I'm just going to read the text, and then we'll go off of that. And I feel like it's good for players and parents and coaches on this, because one, it'll, because you always wonder, how did that person get to that spot? Mm-hmm. How do you become the dude. Now, we're not going to be talking about like Jeff Bezos or Tim Cook or any of those guys. Like that's like a whole nother level. I have not reached that status, and I don't know how it is to get to that spot but I do want to put in some insight on this because I have been around Major League Baseball players. One of my friends is actually three of my friends are Major League Baseball players, and I've played with guys that were in the show. So the question was I was wondering what do professional baseball players do differently or better than college and high school players? I will backtrack, and I know I just said we're not going to talk about startup culture, but when learning about startups, because I did do a startup called Tournament Guy, if no one knows what Tournament Guy is, it was a platform to find tournaments. And I started studying startup CEOs, like the founders. And one thing that really stuck out was the guy who started Y Combinator. Do you know what do you know what Y Combinator is?
No.
Y Combinator is it was like an incubator for startups. So it was kind of like Shark Tank, but on steroids.
Okay.
So what these startups would do, they would apply for the Y Combinator, and then they would live in one space, and then they would build a product.
Okay.
A number of big companies have come out of that. Big startups have come out of that.
Okay.
And he said that you can't look at a corporate 500 company. You can't do that because they're at a different level than you are. They have different resources that you have. And that's not your strong suit. They have their strengths, but they also have major weaknesses that you have that are strengths. Yes, do you want to get to that point where you are the CEO of a Fortune 500 company? Yeah, who doesn't want to be that? I would love to go IPO and then end up becoming this dude.
No doubt.
And he also said you can't compare yourself to the person that just got IPO'd, where they're now reaching that stock level. They're going to have investors coming in, the retail investors. You can't compare yourself to that either because they're at a different level. They're trying to solve different problems. They have different strengths. They have different weaknesses. The only thing that you can compare to is you have to look at guys that are just a little bit farther than you are because then you're going to get ideas of, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I should do that. That's why that works. It's the same way in a career. I can look at Jeff Bezos and I can look to, you name the CEO, and say, man, I love what he does. I can take few things from him, but I can't do like the tactics of like, what do you do when you wake up? What do you do when you eat? How do you approach this? How do you approach that? Yeah, I'm going to get some tips, but I really need to know. That's why I like Andy Frisella a lot because he is still a small business. I can see what he's doing. It's a lot easier of a path to understand, oh, that's what I should be thinking about. That's how I should approach it. And he does a really phenomenal job on his podcast to share that idea of what he thought about when he was
in your spot.
In my spot.
Yep.
In our spot right now.
Right.
Which, again, when we first started listening to him, we were a balls and strikes, a small little baseball facility.
Yep.
We didn't have a conference room that we're in right now.
Right.
We literally had an office space with one little table, and then we'd have our meetings on a lunch table in a weight room. People need to do more of that to understand, like looking just a little bit past them to see, oh, that's what I need to do.
That's kind of the hardest place to find it, though. You don't ever look there.
No, because it's not promoted.
Not easy.
It's not. No one's promoting that. No. Like, would you want to promote what we did at Balls and Strikes? Be like, oh, hey guys, look at us.
That's where you want to get to.
We're doing the weight room. We're having our meeting. Hey, check us out.
Right.
No one's gonna find that interesting. I wish I documented everything.
Sure.
Because then we can go back and be like, yeah, check this out. It's kind of cool that the podcast was part of that a little bit. Like, we knew that we were making the move.
For sure.
And we did a few videos there.
Hey, I like it. I mean, I like looking back and remembering it because you never want to forget where you're at there, right? Where you've been, where you've come from. And so, like, with this player's question, what separates the professionals from the college, from the high school? And by the way, if there are players listening to this, before I start talking on this, what that player did when reaching out to an adult coach and asking that question, that's a step that 99% of people never even ask. Mm-hmm. I want to give kudos to that player, and I won't say who it is, but I want to give kudos to that player for actually asking that question, because you can tell that he's literally sitting at home. It was last night, right? When he sent it?
No, it was today.
Today? Okay. So he's sitting there thinking about it, and he's like, you know what? I want to know the next thing that's going to get me there. I want to know all the little things that are maybe not told and shared on TV. I want to know from a guy who's been there, how do I get there? What do I need to do? What am I not doing right now that can help my career? So kudos to him for saying that. But to take that question into your analogy, don't be looking at the professional athlete. Those guys, you don't even, to talk on a podcast, we'd have to spend days, weeks, talking about the little things that they did day in, day out, the career jumps that they made, the choices they've made. That would be forever.
And frankly, they don't remember.
They probably don't.
And that's the hard part about it, is you're trying to get a memory recollection of what they did. That's so hard. Like, I try to think back of what I did, because I had example. I had Jackson Paisley come in and Matt Paisley. Mm-hmm. They listened to the show. And Jackson had a phenomenal question, bunch of phenomenal questions. He's like, how do I get there? How do I know that I can be that guy? Like, I see these seniors walking around in the high school, and they're strutting their stuff because they know that they're going to college. Yeah, it seems that way, but I mean, there's probably some insecurities there that guy's dealing with too. But it made a recollection in my head, and it was like, yeah, that seemed like it was impossible.
Yeah. And it does.
It felt like there was a huge wall. Like, how do I even get there? Like, I remember watching Max Scherzer pitching for Mizzou in the playoffs. Yep. And everyone was centered around this TV, and I was like, how do you even get there?
Yep. And the boring answer to that nobody wants to hear, and whenever I say it to every single player or coach or whoever, they all look at me like, okay, well, thanks for the shove-off answer. But it's not. You just do it day in and day out and focus on your process. That's the boring answer. That's the answer that no one likes to hear, because why? It's a long-term play. Well, no one wants a long-term play now.
They want the tips, the tricks, the strategies.
They want the thing that's going to get me to where I want to go tomorrow. That doesn't exist, though. It doesn't. I can't give that one player who asked this question, I can't give him, oh, well, dude, if you just do this with your swing and this with your nutrition and you watch this video, you're going to be there. That's that the guy who's basically a snake oil salesman. That's
well, it's not I wouldn't say that term. It's they thrive off of your hope.
Sure.
And they exploit it. Like, but if you say how do I get there, like, oh, you're this close, like,
right.
If you just do this one thing, or if you buy this software, or I'll show you everything that you need to do. I'm the path. I'm what's the best way of describing it? It's like I'm the Yoda.
Yeah. Which drives me absolutely nuts, because you're preying on the insecurities of that person. That's what you're doing. Mm-hmm. That I could sit here and blow smoke up all these players' asses and tell them over and over and over, hey, if you just do this one little thing, or if you come play for the Tigers, you are guaranteed to get to the next level. Guaranteed.
I guarantee you a scholarship.
Yeah. Which happens, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
You'll never once hear me say that. Why? Because I can't guarantee that. I can't sit here and tell you what you're guaranteed for in a year.
And this happens in every industry, though.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy about it. It happens in startup culture, because I saw it in Tournament Guy. Like, people would reach out to us and be like, hey, I can do this for you that'll exponentially grow your accounts.
Sure.
It happens in every industry.
What I can tell you, what I can pseudo promise you is that if you show up every single day, work your ass off, day in, day out, ask questions like this, ask those questions about how you're going to get better, continuously stay in touch with your coaches, keep trying to change or add to your development program, and keep trying to gain information and knowledge, then you're probably going to get somewhere. Is it the major leagues? I don't know. I can't tell you that. Is it college baseball? I don't know. Maybe your peak is to be a fantastic varsity player that gets you some accolades in your hometown. Maybe that's the best. Is that a problem? I don't know. I don't think so. But I can guarantee if you do those things, and again, that's not the sexy answer. No one wants to hear that, man. Nobody wants to. And more times than not, they'll walk away from you and be like, that guy sucks. That guy doesn't want to give me any help. But in essence, that's the answer you need. Because if you want to look at the professional players, okay, the major league guys, your boys, Luke Voigt, okay? Well, I watched Luke Voigt train in the offseason when he was a single A player, and I didn't know him in college. Well, kind of. But I watched him train as a single A player every day in the offseason, and there was no glory about that.
Well, you saw Blaine Gabbert firsthand during high school.
I mean, there was no glory about it. There was no like cheat codes or secrets to it or hacks to get to the next level quick. There's nothing to that. It's simple sweat equity, work, learn, knowledge, gain. That's all that was.
It's curiosity. I think curiosity is the biggest thing, is always being curious of how to make yourself better. Not in a curious way of buying something, but more curious of how does my body work? How does my recruiting work? What is the ins and outs of a scout? How does a scout work? What's the level that each scout is at? That's why I like the Jason Bell episode, because he really deep dived on the organizational chart. And if you're a player that's wondering about all this stuff, that's a good episode to listen to, because then you'll know the other side of the table. So many guys are so consumed with themselves that they don't realize what's the other side thinking and looking for. Because if you know, that's why I like fishing so much, because I have to think like a trout. And that's really annoying, because a trout is freaking dumb. And they're always winning.
Yep.
Why are they always winning? Because they're in their natural habitat. I'm not. I'm trying to figure out how this stream works. And I have to figure out what type of food they like. And their food changes constantly. Well, it's the same thing. You got to know what type of food that these coaches want.
Let me ask you a question. If you had to ballpark the percentage, you've worked with a lot of players, same amount of players I've worked with, okay? If you had to ballpark a percentage of players that A, think like that, or B, have the guts to come up and start asking those questions, what would your percentage be?
Less than 1%, maybe.
I would say
that's not.
I'd say
not
less
fair.
than 5.
That's not fair. I'd say
I'd say less than 5.
There's more.
And that's the problem.
Do you think it's because they're scared?
I think it's because
because teachers are, because in the educational system, teachers are viewed as, this is law and order. Yeah. This is authority.
I think there's a lot of answers to that. I think a lot of it prefaces on, one, I think players are just giving away too much nowadays. I think there's very little earned. I think back to my situation when I was younger, and I didn't play in anything fancy. In fact, the best thing that ever happened to me was I had two parents who never, ever knew anything about baseball. My dad didn't play. My mom never played. They watched it a little growing up, but maybe not much. But I was interested in it, so they knew, well, get your kid involved in it. They didn't know to what capacity or where to play or whatever. They went to a local association, signed me up, and said, hey, have at it, and left me alone. So what did I have to do? I had to go earn stuff. I had to go ask questions. I had to go learn the game on my own. Now, were they there to support me? Yes. But so many players these days everything's just given. They're put on the best teams. They're given the best instruction. There's ample information out there to go find, or just shows up on TV in front of them. They don't earn anything. So why would you expect them to literally now make the hard decisions, the hard choices, sacrifice other time to go do it? Why would you expect that? You're not. They just expect that because they play in the Rawlings Tigers, they play for another club, that they're going to automatically, get a college scholarship, right? Then once I get to college, I'll probably just keep progressing really well because, it's college baseball, and then I'll probably end up having a shot to play professionally one day, and then, probably get a couple lucky breaks, and I'll be on TV one day. That's how they think, because everything's given to you so easily now. Nothing's hard. So I think that's where a lot of that stems from. They won't come up and ask the questions because they don't even know why they should. They just think it's going to happen. They have an idea. They think that idea is just going to come to fruition.
The worst, best thing that ever happened to me, I explained it in one of the episodes, my recruiting story, where I was in club baseball, and literally the coach told me, you're not going to make it.
Right.
You're not a Division I athlete. And it was a huge shock to my system, right? Mm-hmm. Worst season I've ever had. Like I hated that whole season. Disliked the coach, disliked all the teammates I had. But it was the best thing for me because it really made me want it more. Mm-hmm. It made me want to figure everything out. When before that, I didn't have that. It was like you said, what you just said. I was given everything.
Sure.
Pain and struggle is not necessarily a bad thing. Pain and struggle, you're going to learn more about yourself than anything else. I think that's probably the biggest learning curve you could possibly have as an adult.
And it forces you to take the initiative, which is something that is just sorely lacking. It forces you to take the initiative to take control of what you want. It's great to have those dreams. It's great to ask these questions. It's great to be in a good club. It's great to just have some sort of a path in front of you. But if you're not going to take that initiative day in, day out to make a logical choice as to what you're going to do to get better, or ask a question to an adult or a coach, or to sit down with your parents and talk, then how do you expect to get there? Are you going to have bumps in the road? 100%. Are you going to fail? 100%. Is it going to suck at times? 100%. There's no way around it. But if you don't go through those little peaks and valleys, and if you don't continuously take the initiative and when you fail, get back up and pivot to the next thing, then there's no way you're going to get to where you want to get to. You're just going to get out of it and go on to the next thing. And you see it a ton. You see it all the time. Well, it's okay. We'll find something else to do. It's okay. And maybe it is okay for that kid. Well, that kid might not be cut up for college baseball. Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. And we'll find that out. But maybe you really were if you would have just made some choices or been pushed a little bit.
At what point do you think parents need to step away?
Well, I don't. Okay.
I think we might. I think we might disagree on this, but I want to hear your answer on it.
My answer would be never, but in a different capacity. Parents, you have to understand that your kid has to be given enough room and space to learn and make mistakes.
Stand on their own 2 feet.
Correct. You cannot coddle them forever. They're going to have to fail. They're going to have to be put in tough situations. And then they're going to succeed too, right? And you have to be the support system. That's my never. That's what parents are there for. All the decisions and the conversations that can't be had with a coach, with a teammate, that can only be had with a parent, that's what you're there for. And those are the times where you're going to be needed the most. To talk about your kid's, his motions or what he's doing every day, or really literally saying, well, hey, you need to go to practice now, or you need to go do this, or you need to go do that. Remember, you have training tonight at 8:30. You better be there. That's not doing anything, or even packing their clothes for them, or even doing everything.
That's what I was thinking the most right there was, at what point do you stop doing that stuff? And my thought is that high school, ideally.
Sure.
But again, that's not ideal for a lot of people because it is hard to kind of break away from it. I know my mom and dad had a tough time doing that.
Sure.
And they were entrepreneurs. They were people that were constantly trying to figure out how to make it better, make themselves better. So what they did though was, like, my mom would say it all the time, like at 15 years old, And she's like, it kills me to see that you're doing this.
Right.
But you're going to have to learn. And I would be like, okay, yeah, whatever. Because I had no neural connection at all. I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And they were so concerned about safety than anything else.
Sure.
That's what their major concern was. But going back to it, she would let me fail. I'm like, oh, you didn't pack your practice gear. That sucks.
Yeah, you're gonna look stupid.
You didn't pack your lunch. That sucks. Man, you're gonna go real hungry. And that literally, like, it happened right at high school. Boom. But again, it could be one of those things where maybe it's sophomore year.
Well, and let me tell you, because we have a lot of parents of players and coaches who are listening to this. Me and you don't have kids.
Yeah.
I do not sit here pretending to understand what that feeling's like.
Oh, I have no idea what that feeling is.
don't.
I just go off of what I was listening to my parents.
This is strictly from my point of view of being a child.
Yep.
Of parents,
and then also being a
coach.
Yep.
And a guy who oversees and has seen a lot of kids come through this path.
Seen a lot of parents, seen a lot of kids, seen a lot of college coaches. It's weird because we're in that middle ground. We see all the worlds.
I think the best thing that they can do, though, and the parents who I think have really done a good job in terms of getting their kids prepared in this area, is they've made their kids ask questions. They haven't given them every piece of information. Maybe they've dangled that little carrot out there for them, like got them started thinking down this road, but then they stopped. They said, well, what do you think about it? What do you want out of it? What do you think you need to do?
Questions are a really good thing, and I'm not surprised that's coming from a son of a lawyer.
Yeah. Well, it's like I don't even allow kids now, and this is off tangent, but you'll hear me all the time when I'm talking to players. I'm like, how's your day, man? Or how was that last throwing session? What's their answer? Good. That was good. I'm like, hey, wow, that told me everything I need to know about that. Great job. Way to be descriptive. Hold on. Stop. Tell me exactly what went on. Give me some detail, man. I'd love to know about it. If you give me some detail, maybe I can give you some answers back.
It's asking the right question.
Yeah.
It's digging. It's doing that introductory question, and then it gets them talking like good, and then giving them the next question.
Oh, yeah.
How did that feel? Good. Well, what do you mean by good? Like, what was the feeling like? You know who's really good at that? Yeah. Travis Griffin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's really good.
He just.
And all of a sudden, you've had an hour and a half conversation.
Yeah, like you're like that's what was so funny about that with and people that don't know Travis. We've talked about him previously on the podcast. He's gonna end up being a character on our show, and he hasn't even been on the show.
Yep. But
every time I coached with him, and I would have him in the car, and I'd have like a bad day, and he'd just ask a question, and I'm like, that's okay, and then he'd just open me up just ever so slightly, and next thing you know, I'm laughing and giggling, and then he ends up, we're sharing stories about his kids, and then next thing you know, we're talking about history, and then the players that he's working with, and then you have a 2-hour conversation.
Well, you know what would be a crazy experiment? I don't know why I was just thinking about this, but you turned me on to this one. What if we had, let's say we have 150 players in our high school program, right? Roughly. What if we had all 150 players out there together at one time? And we walked out there.
Talking about St. Louis, right?
St. Louis, yeah.
Okay.
And I just picked that, but instead we had our whole coaching staff up here, okay? Collective knowledge, information, 200 plus years, okay? Easily. So much baseball information.
Well, different experiences.
So many different experiences.
Guys that played pro ball, coach pro ball,
everything. And we said, listen, right here, you have every piece of information that you will ever need to get to the path, your place that you want to get to. But we, as a coaching staff, will not approach you, the player, and give it to you. If you ask, we will certainly answer that question and probably give you a next step.
I think they'd struggle with that because they don't know how to ask questions. They ask the right right questions. That I don't know it. And again, I'm not in education. Maybe Di could speak on this more. Do they teach kids how to ask questions? Because like back when I was in grade school, it was the who, what, where, when, why, and then we moved on to the next topic. Mm-hmm. We didn't really learn like all of that. And that's a monumental. I'm surprised they don't go fully in depth in that, which is the who, the what, the where, and the why. That is such a monumental
I will ask her
question block.
Because if we don't, and I even look at us, like we should be teaching that at a young age, but
maybe we suck at that. Maybe we need to figure that one out.
Probably do. But I would literally say to a player, and I've told him a million times, I go, don't expect me to give you everything. If I give you everything, then I'm doing you a disservice. But if you ask me for everything, I'll give it to you. Now, how crazy is that to think? If you continuously ask me, like, I'm an open book. You know that about me. If a player walked in here today and said, hey, can I have a 30-minute conversation? I would stop anything that I'm doing at that moment and go have a conversation with him and go talk to him. Anything you got, what do you got? I'm here to help. That's my job.
Isn't it funny, like toddlers, they get in that question form.
Oh, they ask everything.
Where they go, why? Then you answer it, why? Then you answer it again. And it goes deeper in the whys.
Yep.
Whatever happened to that for like kids? Like maybe it's because of parents like, just shut up.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think you could go to any reasonable coach who's in it for the right reasons. And if you kept not being annoying to the certain extent, respecting their time, they're there to coach, they're there to help, right? And they have lives outside of coaching. But I guarantee if you call them and ask them respectful questions and continuously try to build that relationship, you're going to have a guy who's going to give you every win, every fail, every piece of information that he's ever learned. But players aren't willing to do that. They're scared. That's the truth.
And maybe it's a coaching problem too. Maybe sometimes we're unapproachable. I don't know.
I'm sure. Well, look.
I mean, every player,
look at it this way.
Every player that I've had, they've said that, Spiker, man, I was freaking scared of you. You're a scary dude. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we are positions of authority. I mean, I don't think I come off as a dictator or anything like that. My way or the highway, you're going to run and you're not going to play or anything like that. I don't think I come off like that, but we are positions of authority, and they are still teenagers and below, right? So we have to understand that. But I also want players to understand, too, that at some point it's okay to ask. It's okay to approach an adult. It's okay to ask tough questions or think about these types of tough questions, because I guarantee this player didn't know that we were going to do a podcast on this, and I'm going to make him listen to it.
Maybe players are afraid of the coach just saying, because I said so, or who do you think you are?
Yeah.
To ask that question.
Probably.
I bet you. I'm a favor of that, is asking questions so tough that if you can really tell a person's character if they say, how dare you ask that? Mm-hmm. Who do you think you are? You're just some 15-year-old punk.
Right.
Then you really know where your coach stands.
Sure.
You're like, that's a dude that I really don't want to get taught by.
No, not at all. But the good ones, the guys who are in it,
they'll answer it. That's what I liked about Coach Gutton so much, is when I went against him, he didn't say, how dare you? It was more like, okay, we'll see how it goes.
But G's also a guy who I guarantee if you would have taken the initiative and gone back into a room, and you probably did this a million times into his office, and said, I need to talk to you about these certain things, or this in my life, or this about my game, or whatever, he would have probably taken 2 hours out of his day to sit down and talk to you.
Oh, without a doubt.
Was he going to pull you back there?
Well, we're at the ABCA, and we're sitting there right before we're about to go on the convention floor, and G pulls us off. He literally, the dude walks, and like everyone stops him.
He's a celebrity.
And I didn't stop him. He literally stopped and said, Spiker, what's up, man? How's it going?
Yep.
And he could have gone all the way, because he's probably meeting somebody or whatever, and sat down for us for 30 minutes. And it didn't seem like he wanted to leave. It was more of it was a surprise.
He was in the moment.
He was surprised, and he said, anything else is no worries. Right. I'm going to sit down and talk to Spike and talk to Dave and see what's going on with the Tigers land.
Yep.
I think that's an amazing attribute, because, again, with such a busy world, he was able just to take 30 minutes out of his day and talk about his family and then learn about us. So it was a lost art, really cool. Man. We didn't even really answer the question
Okay,
on pro, college, and high school players. What's the difference?
Okay. Here's how I would answer it. It's exactly where you started off, Spike. It's my initial answer would be, well, let's look at how you can become a consistent varsity player first, or a consistent high school player first, or a consistent college player, wherever you're at, okay? But then I'd preface back to it. I'd go back and say, well, think about what they did day to day. Think about what they did to get to that next step. We're always trying to look 4 steps down the road, and that's great because that's where the dream is.
Yep.
And
well, you
look at those players.
You got to see yourself there.
Well, and you look at those players, and you're like, well, they've got it figured out. They made the highest level. They've got it figured out, and you're not wrong. Most 99.9% of them got there because of their path, not because they just woke up out of bed and they throw 98. So you're right. They have a lot of answers. But I think if you ask them, they would probably go back to your shoes where you're at today and talk to you about what they did tomorrow and what they did the next day and the influential people they had around them to help them and how they were always seeking out information. They were always seeking out that next little nugget that was going to help them get better, level up. And then if they got that information, it didn't work, how did they pivot? How did they change? How many changes did they make throughout their career? Because ask any one of those guys. It wasn't just, I found this one thing in high school and it's worked for me ever since. Never are they going to say that. It's something that, I found this out and this helped me get here. But then it didn't work there because that competition level got exponentially better. So now I had to pivot. Now I had to change my game up. Now I had to learn this asset about myself. Or I became a better base runner. Or I became this or whatever. And then all of a sudden, that got me a little bit better. But then it stopped working. Then it kind of plateaued. Then I had to figure out the next thing, and then the next thing. And that's where surrounding yourself with people who are there to help, who have a ton of information to share, being willing to take the initiative and ask any of those questions that you want. And trust me, the good coaches out there, you can approach them with anything. And it's not just sports related, anything. If I have a piece of information that I know can help you and you ask it, I will give it to you. If I don't have that info, I will find someone who can. I won't leave you hanging. Neither will Spike, neither will anyone, any good coach I know. But just continue to do it. And I know that's not the fun, sexy answer, but it's the truth, in my opinion.
I would say the best thing would be, if I'm a freshman right now, let's just say I'm a freshman, I'm looking at varsity, and I'm thinking to myself, if it was me, I'm better than those guys. Have a little bit of ego. Got to have a little ego to know that you're going to be there. Again, you have to have the skill set to have that ego. But also, I would look at the staff and say, okay, that guy's in my position. What is he doing right that is better than me? Mm-hmm. And then I'd look at the other positions, and like, what does that guy bring to the table? And then I'll look at myself and be a little bit humble. So you got to have that ego, and you got to be humble. Then from there, as I start growing into my trying to get into varsity, I would look at college. I would start going to college games. I did this when I was young. Dad took me to a Mizzou game. We sat literally right behind Purdue when Mizzou was playing Purdue. And he said, do you think you could play here? Without a doubt, I said in my head, yeah, I could definitely play here. And then fast forward 6 years, I ended up playing against Mizzou on that field in that dugout. But some people might say, oh, that's very egotistical. You're living in a pipe dream. Your dad was feeding you a dream that, how did he know that was going to happen? Like, that's kind of manipulative. Like, no. He knew that I had skill sets. Again, you have to have the skills. You can't substitute that. That goes back to the priority list I talked about a couple episodes ago. You gotta have your priorities set straight. You gotta have skill acquisition, skill mastery. I was acquiring those skills and I was building those skills. I had one tool that was really good, and yeah, in my head I could play there. Now, once after that conversation happened, I was looking out there and I was really thinking about it. Could I really play here? what does that guy have that I don't? And I was looking at the center fielder, I was looking at the shortstop, and I was looking at the second baseman, and I was looking at the pitcher because I was a pitcher at the time. And it kind of dawned on me, like, oh, I need to work out a little bit more. Maybe if I progress, like, I guess year after year, I'll get better, right? And it was just a very naive thought. Like, I just naturally get better. Then junior year happened, and that's where it really kicked me into high gear. So to answer the player's question, is you're always thinking to yourself, I can play there with the skill sets that you have, and then trying to figure out what you don't have that needs to get better. Now, pro ball, I never made it to Major League Baseball. I've never made it to affiliated ball. I've played with a lot of guys that played in Major League Baseball and played in affiliated ball. In my opinion, there was no difference. Now, kind of looking back on it, I was a dime a dozen. I was just a switch hitting guy that could hit for power a little bit, and I was very athletic. There's a lot of guys out there that can do that. There was not a special tool that I had that would set me apart to give someone a reason to draft me. So again, luck didn't go into my favor. Went to some other guy. Hopefully he made it to the big leagues.
Right.
It was probably Luke.
But
Luke in all reality, he was way better, and the tools were already there. You could already see it when I was there at Missouri State. Like, I thought, like, that guy's gonna make it. And then Pierce Johnson, who's with the Padres right now. It was like a no-brainer. The guy throws 94 with a nasty slider. That looks like Weaver's slider. I was like, I can't do that. But for them and watching them work, it was the same process that I went through. I felt like Luke was a hard worker. We worked out a lot. Pierce was a very hard worker. So it goes back to your point. They constantly pounded the pavement, and they tried to reach new heights. Their heights were farther than mine, and they were farther than all my other teammates. So again, you have to have the skill sets to get to that next level. And it goes back to the Jason episode where I love how he talks about minor league baseball. He's like, you're good, but you're not that good.
Right.
But I mean, again, you're good.
Yeah.
Because it's true. If you make it to college baseball, you're
good.
You're top 7%. You're good.
You're really good.
You're really good. Yeah.
There were 93% of high schoolers that you were better than.
Yeah. It didn't dawn on me. I was telling Matt Paisley this in the conversation we had, is that I didn't realize, like, it feels like it's just average, right? I'm just an average guy in this baseball world. But marrying an Indian woman and going to Indian functions, and those people don't know the sports world. They just don't. And the people they marry aren't in the sports world. I'm the only sports dude in there. Like, they find it interesting. They play sports, but they didn't play it for money. And they think it's crazy that I did that. So think to yourself, if you see a minor leaguer and you say, oh, that guy's not that good, get over yourself.
Oh, yeah.
That guy's really good. He's just not as good at the major league level. Think about it. You have 30 clubs, and how many players are on that team? 24, 28? Is it? It's a 30-man roster. What is it?
40-man.
40-man
but
roster.
That's not on the.
But
big
you
club.
40 dudes times 30.
Not that many.
That's not that many. That's not that many players
In the world.
You're facing the world.
Yep.
I mean, think about that. That's an astronomical number. But again, don't let that deter you away from thinking about that's a possibility. It's the same thing as an entrepreneur going into the marketplace. Like Todd Lola, that's why I love talking to him. 8% of businesses succeed, right? Like becoming the big deal. He was one of those guys that was a unicorn that ended up making it out. So to answer the full question, keep on looking forward just above you, and then look forward 2 steps, then look forward 3 steps. But make sure that you pay more attention to the first step. Is that my closing pitch? Or are we doing closing pitch?
We can do whatever you want.
What's your closing pitch?
All right, here you go. Since you brought up Todd, there was something I wanted to bring up to him, so maybe he'll listen to this and he'll get this a little short or something like this. But it'll give a really good analogy to what I would think this player should do next. Todd, if you didn't listen to that episode, was the co-founder of Turning
of Turning Machine. He, I think he had the original idea. It might have been the Lynch guy, his cousins that helped out with the idea. I'm not for sure.
I mean, arguably one of the best pieces of technology to enter the youth sports world ever. Okay, ended up selling it off. So you would think that dude's real smart, which he is, but he had it all figured out. Wrong, he didn't. I think he told us that for 4 years he was, beating the pavement trying to get it going and trying to make it work.
He was doing the schedules for Tom Davidson.
Yep. Well,
if you know pastime tournaments, that dude runs so many tournaments.
And that's what I was getting to. That situation where he approached a big tournament company trying to get his name in the market, just trying, and would do anything to do it. He got the answer no, and he said, I'm going to drive and I'm going to meet you. And then he made that conscious decision with no guarantee to make that drive. That was the next day that he made the choice. That was a choice that paved his path for the whole rest of his career in that space, right?
Which is crazy to think about because that's gas money.
If he didn't,
you're literally going negative on this move, and you're going negative on your time.
Right. If he did not make that conscious choice to not accept that no, not get in his car, not go have that conversation, not take on the daunting task of scheduling an entire 2,000 team entry tournament listing for the next whole summer for nothing.
What I love about that is that right there
nada,
is literally
he didn't get paid anything to do it.
Is literally not even thinking about, like, systematically thinking about it. He's just like, Tom gave him the reins and like, hey, if you do my schedules, you can do it. Yeah. He's like, yeah, let's do it.
If he
didn't even think the problem child of it.
If he didn't take that action the next day, who knows where it would have ended up. Who knows if you're not seeing some other scoring deal on every game that we play in throughout the summer. So my point to that story was, yes, there's a pipeline dream of becoming a professional, wondering what they did. But my point would be, what are you going to do tomorrow to make that difference? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to ask? Who are you willing to ask? And how much do you care? Todd obviously cared. I mean, he basically gave away X amount of hours, thousands of hours on his dream, and made a conscious decision the next day to go after it and be basically willing to do anything, willing to ask anybody, willing to beat down the doors of anybody who can help him. That would be what I'd say you need to do.
In hindsight, 2020, it's like a no-brainer. Like, oh yeah, I would definitely go down to see Tom and do the scheduling.
The company
if you knew you were going to get an exit, yeah. But think about
you're going to be in the major leagues in 10 years. Well, sure, okay.
The pressure and the amount of money that you're spending to make that decision and pull the trigger and say hell yeah. That's the same thing with a career, which is, should I go to Perfect Game and do a showcase? I don't know. I might not need to do that. Oh, PBR. Should I do PBR? Should I play club baseball? I mean, I want to play at the University of Notre Dame. Too much thinking. You gotta act. You gotta put
Should
something.
Should I call that coach up? Should I put in that 10-digit number and say, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?"
There's so many things you can do for free right now to move the needle forward. And then you get to that point where you're going to have to make the decision of, all right, we're spending money on this. We're going to do this. I'm going to get that strength trainer. I'm going to get that hitting coach that everyone's talking about and do lessons with him and evaluate and make sure that he's the right fit. Or I'm gonna get onto that competitive team or that competitive club because they've got it figured out. They got the best coaches and they're gonna go play a competitive schedule.
It's all a piece of that pie. But my last thing I'd say is don't be afraid to take action. Just take action. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you fail, you fail. But keep taking action. Don't wait for it. Don't hope it comes because it's not. Nothing falls in your lap. Take action.
Well, it's like with our stuff, making the decision of bringing on more staff.
Where's our company going to pivot? Which move are we going to make
or
next?
what software are we going to buy to make sure that we're able to function a lot better? Like that, everyone has to make a decision on something. I mean, think about Aaron. Like I could only imagine we can have him on again about this. Nah, screw him. He's the boss. I don't want him on this podcast. just thinking about the things that he has to think through on a consistent basis because he has to make the decision.
Sure.
He's the last final straw on the decision making.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be.
But I'm not afraid to say this because I know he's not going to fire me. But I'm sure he's failed.
Yeah,
He'll tell you that. He'll tell you 100%. His favorite quote is like "Ready, aim, fire. Let's go, boys!" Right? He loves that action. Now we sometimes got to slow it down to make sure that we're all making the right decision. I'm just giving.
But he's good at adjusting though.
He really is. But again, he is a perfect example of this. There's no way that guy's not afraid of action. If he believes in it and he's done his homework and the guys and people around him and he's asked questions, let's go. Let's take that next step.
Pull the trigger.
That's it.
I'm just going to leave that as your closing pitch, and that's going to be my closing pitch too. So
boom.
That's we're going to end it out there. Are you cool with that?
I'm fine.
Or do you want me to have a closing pitch?
No, I liked it.
Guys, make sure you subscribe to the show. I keep on forgetting to do this in the beginning. And I truly believe that this is a top level podcast because of the conversations that we're having outside of the mics. And those are the most important conversations to me. I love having impromptu meetings in the facility where it's stirring up conversation and it's really making me better. But more importantly, I'm getting some feedback from you guys on topics that are truly important to you. And I want to make that for me, that's important to me. And I want to figure out these thoughts. Like example, we were talking about mental health the other day and bringing on China possibly.
Yep.
China McCarthy with Jaeger Sports.
Yep. She doesn't know that yet. But.
He doesn't know that yet. So if you start DMing like, "Oh, I can't wait," he has no idea. So unless you want to do that, and he'll kind of freak him out. But I find that an interesting route because again, I don't know much about that. Mm-hmm. I've never had those issues, but I'm intrigued to learn. Because if I'm able to learn and know that, it's going to make me a better coach and a better person and be able to handle certain situations a little bit better. So keep on giving us these conversations outside the mics. It really helps us. And also make sure that you give us a review. Those 5 stars mean so much to us. We have, I think, 34 now.
Yep.
I would love to get that to 100 at some point. Yep. And that's on. I can't go in there and give us a 5-star. I don't want to. I just can't do that. We need your help on that. So if you guys could go out there, give us a 5-star review. I don't think you have to put your name in there if you want to go anonymous. I know how that is with some people. And I know some people don't like to have a social media presence. But if you can go outside your comfort zone for us and give us that 5-star review, that helps us with getting more guests, which makes this show a lot better. And also gives us fuel to the fire and opens up more conversations for us. So if you guys could do that, that'd be a huge benefit to Dave and I.
It would help a ton.
Anything else on that?
No.
All right, guys, we will catch you in the next episode.
See y'all.
Thank you for watching or listening or both to The Closing Pitch. If you would like to get your closing pitch featured on the show, we use a podcasting app called Anchor where you can submit your statement or question via audio. Or what you can do is comment in the comment section of this post. We also accept direct messages. Please give us the A-OK if you do send us a DM to use your statement or question on the show. Last thing, please give us a review on your platform of choice, 5-star preferably, and we value your opinion, and this allows us to reach more people. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode.